So we can start the session, sir.
Okay.
Dr. Nisha, you can start.
Yeah. Good evening, everyone. So, topic of the day is nebulization in critical care, and the speaker is Dr. Ajay Sarkar, and he needs no introduction. He had been the gold medalist and the topper in MD medicine. He's the director of the critical care and emergency medicine in Peerless Hospital, Kolkata. He is the life member of the ISCCM and British Thoracic Society, and he has been a seminar speaker in various seminars of the ISCCM and other national and international bodies. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Nisha, for your kind reference. And thank you all the participants who have joined for today's program. And just I'm going to share my... Today we are going to talk on nebulization in the critical care unit. And the subject I'll cover, cover what is nebulizer, why do you need nebulizer in critical care unit, and what are the different types of nebulizer being used in our unit and their advantages and disadvantages. I'll also talk mainly on the nebulization in ICU patients, where the areas we need to look into that. And of course, we must not forget that we need to do something after nebulization. Otherwise, that can create a lot of problems to your patients. And lastly, I'll talk on non-invasive ventilated patient, how can we use nebulization for those group of patients. Coming to nebulizer, actually nebulization is another kind of drug delivery system through aerosol produced by this machine called nebulizer. We all know that drug can be delivered by oral route, parenteral route, intramuscular, intravenous, intrathecal, subcutaneous, intradermal. And nebulization is another way where you can directly deliver the drug into the respiratory system from bronchial tree up to the alveoli. And the advantage is that the drug concentration in that area will be maximum. Sometimes if you use antibiotic, it will be much above the MIC level, and the side effect is very little. That is the purpose of using nebulized medicine. And right now we have got 3 different types of nebulizer available for our use. Jet nebulizer, that is the most commonly used nebulizer throughout the world. And of course, we have started using vibrating mesh nebulizer, particularly in critical care. Another mode of giving nebulization through ultrasonic nebulizer. There are some advantage and disadvantage of those. Coming to the jet nebulizer, the aerosol is produced by compressed gas and Venturi effect. Therefore, this nebulizer has got a very high residual volume, so you need to use more volume for production of nebulizer. Whereas in ultrasound, the aerosol has been produced by piezoelectric crystal, which is causing high frequency drug solution agitations. And in vibrating mesh, you are using a vibrating mesh which can produce, which can cause aerosolization of the drug, which is kept on the membrane, and it passes through the minute holes. So the less volume should be used for vibrating mesh. In ultrasonic, it's a medium volume, and in jet nebulizer, always volume will be large. But jet nebulizer, you can use any drug, there is no restriction, whereas in ultrasonic, we probably cannot use antibiotic because it produces heat and that can disintegrate the drug. Whereas in vibrating mesh, everything can be used unless it's very viscous, because otherwise this will block the port. And regarding ergonomics, jet nebulizer though it's commonly used, but it always interfere with the ventilator. So whenever you are using jet nebulizer in ventilator, you have to do something which I'm going to talk. But in other true nebulizer, it doesn't interfere with the ventilator, so therefore they can be used jolly well without much problem with the ventilator circuit. Nebulization in critical ill patients, mostly we have been using currently the bronchodilators, antibiotic, and at times we are using some anesthetic agents like xylocaine. Sometimes the efficacy of aerosol drug depends on many factors, and most of them are either drug-related factors or mechanical ventilator-related factors, or the device factor like circuit and a humidifier, nebulizer also, and patient-related factors where anatomy of the patients sometimes and the mucous membrane causing obstruction in the tube might affect the nebulization process. So we'll go one by after. During aerosolization, there is high possibility of achieving very high local drug concentration. That is the purpose of using this mode in critically ill patients, because we need to act fast and we need to act immediate, and we shouldn't get more side effect for our patients. However, the research interest in aerosol drug therapy in critically ill patients is not always reflected in our bench to bedside transfer of knowledge. Because one of the reports mentions that though we have been using 95% of intensivists are using nebulized medicine, but unfortunately in most of the cases aerosol therapy is not guideline directed. Even in other studies, every 4th or 5th patients are getting aerosol therapy. And one recent international survey performed in Europe, Asia, Australia, and North America has shown that 45% of ICUs are practicing antibiotic nebulization. However, very few of them are just following the exact recommendations. So therefore, how much antibiotic is going into the right place, that's a big question. Coming to the factors which can affect our drug delivery can be divided into 5 main areas: ventilator related, circuit related, the nebulizer being used can have different nebulizers have got different effect, and the patient and drug also sometimes affect your drug delivery. Coming to the ventilator related factors, we need to address the following things. The mode of ventilation has to be choiced. The tidal volume has to be said. The inspiratory flow, how much we should give inspiratory flow, that is important. Duty cycle, that means the inspiratory cycle of total cycle, which is also has got some effect. I'll come to that. And the bias flow, it's a slow flow, always will affect the drug deposition, and bias flow in high flow, high flow oxygenation, it has got a very high flow. So therefore that machine cannot be used for nebulization. So regarding ventilator related factors, we will come to those points. First, the mode. Always we should go for volume control ventilation. If the patient is on, say, SIMB mode or pressure support, you have to change this to volume control, provided the patient has got a low compliance and low resistance. And tidal volume should be at least 500 or above. If the patient is on 6 ml per kg body weight, that 70 kg, so it's around 400. But you have to increase the tidal volume during the time of nebulization. This is important, and inspiratory flow should be not too high. It should be between 30 to 50 liters per minute. And the duty cycle, that means inspiratory cycle should be more than 1:3. So it should not be less than 1:2. And the lower bias means bias flow should be less than 2 liters, which I'll show you in a study. This is one of the study published in Respiratory Care Journal, where it has shown that the 40 liters per minute flow has got a higher drug deposition, whereas the 80 liters has got significantly less drug deposition. And the total inspiratory time is to total time. This is a duty cycle. When it is 1:4, the is much less. But if it is inspiratory time is more than 50%, then it's much higher, and that applies for high flow inspiratory flow as well. So duty time has got some effect on the drug depositions. So the ventilator setting for aerosol therapy should be the lower respiratory rate frequency. It should be below 20. Your inspiratory time should not be should be more than 2 to 3 seconds, and there should be inspiratory pause if possible in your ventilator, and volume control ventilation should be the mode of choice, and the flow should be laminar flow instead of turbulent flow, and that has to be 30 to 50 liters per minute. Low bias flow, which is 2 liters or less. Tidal volume always should be above 500. PEEP usually kept below 6 or 5 centimeters. Flow rate for the oxygen in the jet nebulizer should be around 6 to 8 liters per minute. Peak inspiratory flow should be 6 liters per minute, and ventilator synchrony is favorable in selected cases, particularly AVEC patients, temporary sedations on case-to-case basis. But preferably we should avoid sedations in this case. So coming to the circuit, this is the circuit we have been using for our ventilator, the white piece, and it's showing the expiratory limb. So you're always the HME filter, your HME filter should be expiratory end, and the nebulizer should be in the inspiratory limb. And this is a vibrating mesh nebulizer which is connected within 15 centimeter of the tube, Y connection. And humidifiers should not be between the ET tube and the nebulizer. ET tube always should be large diameter, and the ideal should be between 7.5 to 8. And HME can act as barrier to aerosol therapy. Therefore, it has to be removed during the time of nebulization, particularly during jet nebulization. And to maximize pulmonary deposition, in a case of jet nebulization, oxygen flow should be 6 to 8 liters. Regarding circuit-related factors, we during mechanical ventilation, optimum humidifications is allowed with a heated humidifier with temperature around 34 to 48, 1 degree centigrade. HME should not be positions between vibrating mesh nebulizer and patient. And vibrating mesh nebulizer placement in the circuit must be prior to the humidifier in case of heated humidifier, and use optimal ET tube, which I have already mentioned. Next is your nebulizer. It's very important, these points during installation of nebulizer and the type of nebulizer, its position in the circuit, and always we will discuss about the intermittent and continuous nebulization, and the volume of nebulizer, fill volume and residual volume. What is fill volume, what is residual volume? I'll come to that. When you are using, and most of our units have been using jet nebulizer before, but currently we started using mesh nebulizer. But most of the time, jet nebulizer is less efficient than ultrasonic or mesh nebulizer that we are, because in jet nebulizer, the particle size will be always above 5 microns, and most of the particles or aerosols are depositing within the tubes, and very little of them are going into the respiratory bronchial or alveolar level. So placing the nebulizer at a distance from ET tube, jet nebulizer always should be placed much beyond your Y connector. I'll show that and why this is important. I'll come to that. This is one study has shown that jet nebulizer has got much less deposition than the mesh nebulization. And when you are using 2 liters per minute, your bias flow, then drug deposition is higher than high bias flow. So that applies for both pediatric lung model as well as adult lung model. So that is one of the things which always we don't see during our ventilation. This is an interesting slide, why the jet nebulizer should be used much distal to your inspiratory limb from the Y. This is the ideal position, because if you use that jet nebulizer, even the drug during expiration phase will remain in the inspiratory limb, so that it will act as a spacer, and during again inspiration it will go straight to the system of endotracheal tube and drug within the patient's lung. So there won't be any loss of drugs. But if you keep the jet nebulizer very close to Y connector, during expiration the drug will go into the expiratory limb and there will be a lot of loss of the aerosol. So that is the reason we should keep the jet nebulizer much towards the ventilator rather than towards the ET tube. But in mesh and ultrasonic nebulizer, it should be much close to the Y connector, just the reverse. This is an important point. Therefore, placing of nebulizer is very important, but most of the new nebulizer ventilator has got a built-in nebulizer circuit, so there you don't have to bother with all these things. Nebulizer, continuous versus intermittent nebulization. As you know, the flow could be continuous and intermittent. For jet nebulization, it should be intermittent nebulization, and that should be synchronized with the patient's breathing. Then only it gives maximum drug deposition. Whereas when you are using, I'll come to that, using non-invasive ventilator, then it should be continuous, not the intermittent. And this is the study has shown that continuous nebulization, intermittent nebulization, this is a breath-related intermittent nebulization, has got a maximum drug deposition in comparison to continuous. And coming to the field volume and residual volume, if you see the chamber of the, it's applied for your jet nebulizer. Jet nebulizer chamber, when you are using, there is a line showing that how much it has to be to get the maximum effect, and it always is between 4 to 6 milliliter. And in when you are using that, there will be always some residual volume. So you can't nebulize all the volume, but that doesn't apply for vibrating mesh or for ultrasonic. So vibrating and ultrasonic can have very low residual volume, 0.1, but in jet nebulizer, this could be as high as 2.4. Therefore, during utilization of jet nebulizer, always you need to fill up to the volume, maximum fill volume level, so that you can give the adequate amount of drug into the system. Coming to the antibiotic nebulization, just few points. Always it's better to use vibrating mesh nebulizer, because if you use antibiotic through jet nebulizer, the particle size will not be above below 5 microns. So most of the drug will be deposited within the tube or within the airways. It won't reach up to the alveolar level where you need to have the maximum amount of antibiotic. So it's better to use that, and it's always position of the nebulizer should be within 15 centimeter if you are using the vibrating mesh. Humidifications can be there, but you can off the humidification during utilizations. And ventilator setting, again, it's a volume control is always with constant flow, not the intermittent flow during antibiotic use. After treatment, is as I mentioned that after your ventilator utilization, nebulizer use, if you keep the nebulizer within the circuit, then you can invite lot of nosocomial pathogen, and that can generate bacterial aerosols, and eventually we are using the system bypassing our common barriers, and then either the bacteria or fungus, whatever will grow, that goes straight to the alveoli without, since we are bypassing through the tubes. So that can cause VAC. So coming to the patient's anatomy, it's very important because when you are nebulizing a patient, that patient might have one lung just collapse, or one lung completely opaque due to consolidation or due to fluid with collapsed lung. So in that situation, your nebulization will not be uniform. So that has to be kept in mind. And regional lung aeration sometimes will hamper your drug deposition as well. So always a constant flow, laminar flow during inspiration increases your nebulization efficacy, which we have already discussed. And also mucus barrier and atelectasis will hamper the drug depositions. Particle size, as I mentioned, that the smaller size, the better drug deposition distally in your airways, and the ideal size should be between 3 to 5 micron. And the nebulizer, best nebulizer perhaps is vibrating mesh, because it generates a small size particle. It's a small volume can be used. The duration of nebulization is less. It doesn't interfere with the ventilator settings, and also you can use any solutions through this mesh nebulizer. During post-nebulization, we must not forget the cleaning and maintaining of the nebulizer, because as I've mentioned that if you keep the nebulizer within the circuit without taking it out and cleaning and sterilizing, then that will invite the pathogens from your unit. And most of the time you'll see that those who have been on nebulization after, say, down the line 2-3 days, they are developing infections in the lung or infections within the airways. So that is one major factors, and that is why always you need to take the nebulizer out before using next time. And if you see in the IT settings, paramedics are always responsible for giving care to our patients connected to nebulization and mechanical ventilation. In most of the units, the basic ventilatory, after being set by the medical officer or the RMOs or the senior resident, they are being looked after by the nursing staff all the time. And if there is any alarm or any problem with the system, then they are informing the on-call doctor or whoever is in the unit. So they must know what should be monitored, what should be done after nebulizations. And if you see the knowledge of handling nebulizer amongst the paramedic or nursing staff, there had been a study where it has shown that before giving them education, their knowledge is almost zero. And after having even some course, the satisfactory result was found among only 44% of the nursing staff or paramedics, and 56% didn't perform well. So even after having their course, so it's very important to know what should be done even after nebulization. And as you could see from this study, that those who are not being properly done up post nebulization care, the fungal colonization could be as high as 75%. But if you do it properly, it could be just 15%. And same thing happens with bacterial colonization. It's as high as 87% for those who are not properly disinfected. But after disinfection, it goes down to only 12%. So nebulizer always should be sterile at the start of, before the start of nebulizations, and after each use, they should be removed from the ventilator circuit. They should be disassembled. They should be cleaned with sterile water and should be rinsed and disinfected. Disinfected will be done by two agents. One is 3%. 3%, I think it's a hydrochlorothiazide, or 70% isopropyl alcohol. When you are using 3%, the hydrochlorothiazide, then sorry, not hydrochloride, it says 3%. I've forgotten, sorry, that going for isopropyl alcohol, if you are using that, then it should be kept 30 minutes. But 3% solution, which is, it's something I've forgotten the name. And we are using mostly isopropyl alcohol, and that is 30 minutes we have to dissolve. But the other agent, which is a costly one, you can keep them for 3 minutes only. And if you don't do that, that can result to nosocomial pneumonia, even that. So coming to I'll take you through one real life scenario after having this background knowledge. So just before 3 days back, I had a patient, a male patient who is a known COPD, but got admitted with type 2 respiratory failure. His pH was 7.28, PCO2 was 68, and PO2 was around 54 with 2 liters oxygen, and his bicarb was above 35. And then he's a chronic COPD patient. His chest X-ray was showing severe pneumonia involving the right lungs, mostly upper lobe, and also involved the lower lobe upper portion. So his saturation could not be maintained with NRBM. We have tried with that, and then somebody applied NIV, but I don't like NIV in pneumonia patients. And he has got extensive bronchospasm. So obviously, after bronchodilation with jet nebulizer, he didn't improve. So we have taken the decision to intubate him, and he was intubated. Now you need to go for nebulization in an intubated and ventilated patient. First, you as a nursing staff should clear the endotracheal tube. Then you should fill the because of, if you are using jet nebulizer, and most of the units are using jet nebulizer. So if you have a jet nebulizer, then fill the nebulizer solute with nebulizer solution up to 4 to 6 millimeter. If it is Rionil, then you give the whole respule and add rest of the volume with normal saline. And then ensures that that will ensure greatest aerosol generating efficacy. Now you need to place that nebulizer in the inspiratory limb, and it should be, as I mentioned, the jet nebulizer should be at least 30 centimeters from the Y connector. And if the patient is on heat and moisture exchange HEP filter, that has to be removed. But if he is on heated humidifier, then you don't have to remove that, and you shouldn't. You just stop the electric circuit for that unit, and ensure the airflow in the jet nebulizer 6 to 8 liters for generation of aerosol. And if possible, decrease the inspiratory flow to less than 60 liters. And so normally I have mentioned that it should be 30 to 50 liters per minute. Then you adjust your ventilator. Whatever he is in a mode, so it should go to volume control mode, and your tidal volume should be around 500 or above, and the inspiratory expiratory ratio should be 1:3, or your inspiratory time can be more than that. And if required, you change the ventilator settings, because you need to adjust the minute volume sensitivity trigger. Otherwise, always there will be alarm whenever you are using jet nebulizer. Ventilator will start giving alarm because it interferes with the ventilator settings. If it is a continuous flow, then you turn off that continuous flow to intermittent flow, and always observe the nebulizer, that whether it's generating adequate aerosol or not. If not, you need to tap the nebulizer intermittently during operation, so that it starts, nebulizer begins to sputter again. When all the medications is nebulized, and when no more aerosol is being produced or generated, then disconnect the nebulizer from the ventilatory circuit. It is very important. Don't keep it with the circuit. And then rinse the nebulizer accessories with sterile water, then are dry run and store under aseptic conditions. And once you have done, then you must reconnect the HME if you have taken it out. And if the ventilator was in support mode, then go back to the support mode, or whatever mode he had been with that patient. So a ventilator was with that patient. And you need to adjust your alarm setting again. So say you have decided to go for non-invasive ventilation mode in that patient, or the patient I have given you, and sometimes one can go for NIV mode even with the ventilator, because it's a pH is 7.28, so PCO2 was not too high, so, and the patient is conscious. In that situation, you need to use the higher IPAP and lower EPAP, and always better to use vibrating mesh nebulizer while you are using NIV. And the HME filter should not be there in the circuit, and the vibrating mesh nebulizer should be between the mask and the white piece. So that should be the right position, and your mask should be always oronasal mask instead of full face mask. And ideal drug particle size range from 3 to 5 in this setting, if possible. And optimal position of the nebulization, the patient's position should be sitting position. Even if they are not in the sitting position, the head end should be elevated to 20 to 30 degrees. And this is one area where continuous nebulization flow is better than intermittent when you are using mask ventilations. So that's just contrary to ET tube ventilations. And optimizations of therapy through tracheostomy tube. Sometimes we do see patients, and we have got patients with tracheostomies and on TPs, and we need to give them nebulization, either antibiotic or bronchodilator. So always the size, the tracheostomy size should be between 8.5 to 10 millimeter, and the inner tube has to be removed during nebulization. You always use fenestrated tube during the fenestrated tube is better in this group of patients. And there are two ways one can use nebulization. One is just with a mask over the tracheostomy, or one can use TPs with a corrugated limb. And it has been proved from that study that if you use TPs with corrugated limb, then the drug deposition is maximum instead of using mask over the TPs, over the tracheostomy tube. Optimizing the aerosol therapy in critical care, and it's always nebulizer should be single-use nebulizer is always preferable, and disposable nebulizer is, sounds always better. But in our unit, we have been using a nebulizer for one patient. Each patient should have its own nebulizer, but we are reusing them. So during reusing, you need to clean them as we have. So wash, disinfect, clean, and dry up. These 4 steps has to be followed. Regarding formulation, the medicine formulation should be pyrogen-free, isotonic, and sterile. The pH of the formulation should be around 6. Formulation should be free from any preservatives or sulfides. Otherwise, this can cause reaction to the airways. And monitor peak airway pressure and oxygenation during nebulization. Surveillance of the systemic drug absorption in high-risk cases. Regarding aerosol delivery care, and that means nebulizer care, which can be in 3 areas. One in home setting, that is always we have been asking them to use the single use, and the medicine should be single dose medicine, and they should clean with the same principles, applying same principles. But reusable nebulizer in hospital setting, protocol is clean them, disinfected them, rinse them, and air dry before next use. And other things like add-on devices also should be same with clean, disinfect, and rinse, and air dry. These 4 steps has to be followed to avoid any nosocomial infections. These are the basic things I've just highlighted for the for mostly our nursing staffs who have been working in the critical care unit, and they are doing nebulization every day, and they might have problems during nebulizations, but if they can follow these principles particularly in a ventilated patients. Regarding another area I just haven't discussed much, in a non-invasive patient who is on just portable BiPAP, not the ventilated BiPAP mode, there the nebulization can be done in 2 ways. One is if they can be kept off ventilator or off BiPAP, then it's the usual way we have been using nebulization in the ward for other patients. The same way you can use with any nebulizer. Jet nebulizer is commonly being used in those group of patients, and the principles are more or less the same. But if the patient cannot be kept off ventilator, they are so poorly that you cannot take that mask from that patient, then you have to use 2 things. Either the jet nebulizer or vibrating mesh nebulizer is always preferable between the mask and the connector, ventilator connector. And there is single tube, so in between, and always the nebulizer should be prior to your exhale valve. So it must not be beyond the exhale valve. So that is important point. Or you can use a canister. You can use canister with connector, where you can just directly push the canister with each inspiration. And as you know, the single nebulizer means the 20 puffs of inhaler. But when you are using spacer, it becomes just 10 puffs. So you have to use the 10 puff of canister for any agent, whatever you are using, not for antibiotic in this group, in this way. So that is the way we have been using a nebulization in a patient who is on BiPAP, not the NIV mode. With this, I think I have covered most of the thing. Just a few questions for those who have joined here, that if they can answer this. What is the ideal nebulizer for ventilated patients? Anybody can answer from that participants? They can just join I think the access is with them. Neil, can they
Yes,
join?
sir. Yes, sir. They just need to raise their hand and I would unmute
Okay.
their mic, sir.
So anybody can answer. It's a very easy question. So which type of nebulizer is ideal for ventilated patient? Because that will not interfere with the way of ventilations, because it must not be jet nebulizer. So it has to be between ultrasonic or vibrating mesh. I
So
think
there are
it's
some answers that are put in the chat box, sir.
okay. So chat box. So good. Jet. No. Everybody is saying jet. Sorry, it should be vibrating mesh nebulizer. Next question, should we use HME filter during nebulization? Yes, no. Many of you, one has said yes. Just the answer who has given yes probably is not right. It should be no, except in a patient who needs very high minute ventilation. If they need more than 10 liter, then you should not use HME, but they should be on heated humidifier. This is important because otherwise high flow can dry up all the tubes and also the airways, and that can cause problem eventually with crusting of the airways, and then there might be narrowing of the airways causing high auto PEEP generation. So this is another things you must remember. If you are using very high tidal volume, then you high minute ventilation, then use heated humidifier. Next question, during nebulization in non-invasive ventilation, what should be EPAP? Should it be high EPAP or low EPAP? I think this area probably I haven't highlighted much. It should be low EPAP and high IPAP, because if you increase the EPAP very high, then most of the medicines will go through the mask from their leak, because whenever you are using non-invasive ventilation, the leak always will be there, always, and the NIV mode doesn't correct much. So that's why the EPAPs, even if it is 6 or 8 during the ventilation, you need to reduce it as minimum as possible. Say, for example, 3 or 4. What are the next question? What are the steps for cleaning nebulization after use? This is very important. All my nurses who have joined must do it in a stepwise manner. In the 4th step, it's a cleaning, then disinfections, then rinse them with sterile water, not the distilled water. Mind it, it's always rinsing with sterile water, then air dry them, then kept it in a sterile condition, in a area where the things are kept for sterile things. What should be the characteristic of nebulization solution? Cleaning, that's a previous question. Yeah. What should be the characteristics of nebulized solution? Wait, just wait. The characteristics should be this. They should be free from any pollution, should not have any preservative. Their pH will be around 6, and that should have volume, adequate volume, and should not be disintegrated after keeping them for prolonged time. And sometimes you need to keep them for more than 20 minutes. How can you use MDI inhaler in ventilated patients? I've just mentioned that MDI inhaler can be used in a ventilated patient in with a connector where you can directly put the canister through that hole, and then you use inhalers with each breath 2 puffs, and in that way you have to minimum give 10 to 12 puffs. So that's all about any questions from any participant, then I can answer them. Neil, are they going to ask me directly or it's going to chat box?
So either they raise their hand and I will unmute them, or else they can put the questions in the chat box, sir.
Because last 10 minutes is for discussion, so that's why
Yes.
I finished. Come on, has to be some query.
So there is one question that is put in the chat box, sir. So can you repeat the answer for the last question?
Oh, yeah. So how can we use MDI inhaler in a ventilated patient? Say, in a ventilated patient, there are 2 ways of ventilation. One for intubation ventilation, one is non-invasive ventilation. You can use both the MDI in both the situations. For say intubated patient, you must always remove the HNE filter from the circuit, at least from Y connector areas or from proximal to your MDI. So MDI should be between Y piece and the ET connections. And there is a connector which has got a small hole in, and you can fix that hole with the canister, taking out from the delivery system of MDI. Just canister, you put the canister within that hole and push it. For with each respiration, inspiration, push twice, and that will go directly into the endotracheal tube and the airways, and wait for the second breathe. So by that you can give 10 to 12, even 20 puffs at a time. So that is for intubated, ventilated patient. When you are using non-intubated, that means mask ventilation, then the mask, and always I have mentioned the mask should be oronasal mask, not the full face mask. And between the mask and the expiratory, if you are using BiPAP, then you always have an exhale valve for expiration. So in between exhale valve and the mask, you have to connect the canister connector, the small piece of tube, and use the canister through that tube in that area. So that is if you use them beyond the exhale valve, then most of the aerosols will come out through the exhale valve. Is that okay? Next.
So there's one more question which is put in the chat box, sir.
One patient high P. Sir, can you please repeat the answer of question 2? Okay. One patient high P, can I use nebulization? High P. Yeah, okay, good questions. Coming to the high PEEP, if high PEEP means that patient is intubated and ventilated. Here, I would suggest that you always use the vibrating mesh nebulizer, and you should not take that nebulizer out, because high PEEP, when you are disconnecting the system, then there will be always a deep in your PEEP, and that can cause shearing force within the alveoli, because alveoli which are kept open with the high PEEP will have collapse, and that causes shearing force and can generate further cytokine release. So always keep them on vibrating mesh nebulizer, and don't take it out during the time of high PEEP utilizations. And for next question, number two is what? Should we use HME filter during nebulization? No, because HME filter will absorb all your aerosols, and HME filter, even if you want to use, has to be beyond the nebulizer connection. So distal to, not the proximal. But ideally, you should use HME filter in the expiratory limb, and expiratory limb just near to your ventilator, so that the medicine doesn't go into the system in your ventilator, and otherwise the ventilator circuit with the medicine you have been using, say for example antibiotic or bronchodilator or whatever, that can interfere with the computer chips and your ventilator might have problem. So always use HME filter in the expiratory limb, not within the inspiratory system. Any other questions? Disadvantage of nebulizer. Yes, as I have mentioned, that disadvantage of nebulizer, when you are giving medicine and then it can create reactions, if it is that applies for any medicine. But when you are using through circuit in a ventilated patient, then whatever pressure is going, it's going through the nebulizer, so there will be always some always changes in your ventilator parameters, and that can create noise, that can create that can interfere with your ventilations. So that, but since it's a transient phenomenon, that is allowed, because the patient needs more nebulization rather than keeping them off nebulizer, because we are using nebulizer who has got severe bronchospasm. That means the airway resistance is very high, and in a patient who has got high airway resistance, they are facing trouble during normal ventilation unless you keep your airway resistance low. Otherwise, there will be very long difference between peak pressure and pause pressure. So we all know that more your difference peak and pause pressure, the more resistance patient has got. So in that situation, you have to give nebulization. That's the, it has got disadvantage, but it's more advantage than disadvantage in the ventilated way. Yes, colistin is a nebulizer we have been using. There are few drugs, colistin, tobramycin, aztreonam, and sometimes amikacin. You got to see that these drugs are mainly not water soluble and not viscous, because you always use antibiotic through mesh nebulizer. Jet nebulizer is not ideal for antibiotic use, and their specific gravity should be low, and their pH should be around 6, and they should not have any preservative. Any antibiotic which has got preservative should not be used for nebulization. Yeah, sometimes any other questions, Neil?
No, sir, I really cannot see any questions in the chat box, sir. If there is nothing, then we can close.
I
we can close the
hand over
session.
mic to our moderator, Dr. Nisa, please.
Thank you, sir, for the so nice presentation. It was very useful.
So
Okay, sir, thank you. Thank you very much for presenting this for all the nurses today. Thank you, Dr. Nisha, for being a part of this session as
Yeah.
well.
and I must thank the IICCM office for coordinating whole sessions, and thank you Neil and others who have been in the Mumbai office. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.